Today we're going to start making the gavel project, and so what you need to do is bring your wood over to the lathe, but before you do that, what you need to do is make sure that you have cut an X in one of the ends of your block with a handsaw. The other end has to have a pen mark or a pencil mark with an X, and that's where you want to put your tailstock. Alright, to set your block up here for the first time, what you need to do is you need to grab a pole or a stick out of the cabinet, and what we need to do is put this in the headstock over here to the left hand side, and we need to poke that spur out, and what you want to do is keep your hand underneath here so that you catch it, otherwise it'll fall down up underneath here and it's hard to get to. So you want to catch that. After you do that, return your pole to the door and don't just leave it laying around. Okay. Now, the mistake people often make is taking the spur and trying to drive this spur too far into their block of wood. Now, I am on the side with the X that has been cut in there. So what I'm going to do is line up my X, and I'm going to take a hammer, and I am going to just lightly tap on that. And I'm not going to go too far in. If you go too far in, what you're going to end up doing is cracking your wood. Now, I'm going to slide that in there, and I'm going to slide my tailstock up to where I had that X and lock this down. Now, I'm in the back of the lathe. You see my right hand pushing down on this, and I'm going to push down on this really hard to make sure that it does not slip out. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right hand, I'm going to turn this until it gets nice and snug. What this is doing is turning your spindle right here, and it is pushing up against your spur, so this gets nice and tight in between here. Make sure you do that every time. Once I get it tight, I'm going to take this little locking lever that's in the back of the lathe, and I'm just going to lightly screw that down. There is a groove right here where my finger is that this bolt has to line up with. Now, if you turn this knob with your right hand and nothing happens, you need to let me know right away, because that's going to cause a large issue with you when you're trying to turn your block if this is not tight. So this needs to be tight every time. Now I'm going to set my tool rest. Sometimes they're hard to move, and if you put your hand down here underneath, and you'll feel a little round washer, you can kind of get that to move a little bit, and it slides usually pretty decent. So this is a block that I've already started turning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this down, and I'm going to make this round right about there in the middle. Okay, so I think that's about a good spot for my tool rest. Now that I've moved my tool rest, what I need to do is turn my block to check for clearance. The other thing I'm going to look at is right here. I'm going to make sure that my tool rest is just below center. So when I set my roughing gouge, and if you take a look at the roughing gouge here, you'll see the shape of it. It's the biggest tool that we have in the tool cabinet for roughing. So we're going to take this, and we're going to let that ride right there on the tool rest. And notice where my right hand is. I take my left hand away, and it's right up there against the tool rest, and that's where I want it to be. Alright, now I'm going to take my left hand because I'm left-handed. If you're right-handed, you can switch your right hand and put your left hand up here towards the top. So now it looks like I'm ready to go. So I've got my tailstock nice and tight. I've checked for clearance. My tool rest is very close to my block of wood, and it is just below center. Now, if you set as you start turning your block, and you set your tool up here on the tool rest, and you lightly touch it to the wood. Now, if you notice, if you can see on camera, I slightly turn the tool away from me, and it creates the sawdust to jump away. So I'm just sliding my gouge back and forth on the tool rest very lightly, back and forth, and I am gently making my block round. Now if you'll notice that if you start making big wood chips, that's what you want to make. All right, as I can hold one of these up, they should be relatively large wood chips. If you are making sawdust, you need to get this sharpened by me, and just let me know, and it only takes a couple seconds to get that sharp. This tool right here is nice and sharp. I am wearing my safety glasses. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses at all times, because as you'll notice, the wood chips come flying back at you. Alright, now to make my gavel handle, if you look at the plan, the largest diameter I have on the plan is 7/8 of an inch. I want to get my stick down to just above that. So I'm going to take it down to about an inch to an inch and 1/8. I do want to give myself a little bit of space to go ahead and make a mistake. Now, my tool rest is too close, because if you notice right here, it's not turning. So every time that I adjust my tool rest, I have to make sure that my block can spin freely without hitting that tool rest. Okay. I'm going to try zooming in here. I have a little bit left over here. Now I don't want to go all the way to the end. I want to leave a little bit squared off. So I'm just going to go up to about 1/2 of an inch up to where the spindle is. Okay. Now my block is already almost all round, and it's fairly uniform all the way through here. All right. Now the reason why that it is because if you put your finger right up against this tool rest and you pinch the gouge that you are using, you will not go back and forth. You'll go right nice and even, and you'll keep a nice uniform depth. Now one thing you'll notice that down here on my block, it's not very it's not very square here at the end. It kind of tapers off, and I want to remove that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get the parting tool, and I'm also going to go ahead and get a set of calipers, and a ruler. These are two items that you are going to need to have when you are making this gavel. All right, and that's a ruler and a set of calipers. Now I notice on the plan that the largest diameter that I have is 7/8 of an inch. So here's my set of calipers. All right, here's my ruler. I'm just going to use those here in just a second. But what I'm going to use first is my parting tool. And if you'll notice the shape of the parting tool, it looks like a kind of a rectangle at the top. All right. Now I'm going to turn this on its edge, and I am going to use this sharp portion here. And what I'm going to end up doing is just running that straight into my block. And squaring that off just ever so lightly. Okay. Now you'll notice, if I can even zoom in any further, you'll notice that my ends are still square where I've got my fingers right here. These are going to remain square. These are going to be the parts of my handle that I actually cut off on the saw. They're not even going to be a part of my handle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down, and I'm going to take my calipers, and I said even though the largest diameter is 7/8 of an inch, what I want to do is leave myself a little bit of clearance, because number one, I'm going to sand. Number two, I want you to leave a little extra clearance in case you make a mistake. You got a little room to work with. So even though my largest diameter is 7/8, I'm going to go a little bit larger than that. I'm actually going to even go up to about 1 1/8, which gives me a 1/4 inch clearance. So I'm going to open that up to about 1 1/8, and there's my gap, is 1 1/8. So I need this to slide over my board when I know it's 1 1/8. Now the parting tool, this little tool right here, this triangular shape, when I turn it on its edge and I set it on the tool rest, I'm going to take this part down right here at the edge down to 1 1/8 inches. Now the tendency is to get going a little bit too fast. Now I'm going to check this one area right here, and it's getting there, but not quite. Problem there is my tool rest is not where it needs to be. I need to slide it down just ever so slightly. I moved my tool rest, so what I'm going to do is check for clearance. Now, again, the tendency here is to get going too fast with this tool. And if you think it needs to be sharpened, you come let me know and I will sharpen this up for you, and it should cut fairly easily. Alright, now I'm getting really close. Those calipers are about ready to slide over that this edge right here. So that tells me right here that I want the rest of my block to be even with the indentation that I just made. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide my tool rest down just ever so slightly. Now I can see, because my block is round, I know it's going to have plenty of clearance here. I'm going to just get it set in the right spot, lock that down. I'm going to go back to my roughing gouge. Put my hand right up here against the tool rest. And now my block is pretty small, and I can double check even with the calipers, and that is fairly close. I can go down just a little bit more right in here just to get it ever so close to that 1 1/8 inches. Okay, I'm going to leave that be, and now I can see that this side needs a little work. So I'm going to slide my tool rest down a little bit. Remember, I want the tool rest to be as close as I can. I'm going to check for clearance because my tool rest is down here at the other end on the square part. So I need to spin that. I've got that good to go. Again, my hand is resting on the tool rest. Just sliding it back ever so gently. Okay, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty uniform all the way through.